Well, good morning. Greetings from the first 2 days of school. Officially happened. I know you guys have been in school for like a month, seems like. I heard when y'all started, I was like, I don't know what's happening there. I hope Eben never does that. But greetings. I was talking to Adam before church, and I said the hard part about working with freshmen, because we do the whole Thursday, we start on a Thursday, right? So we have Thursday and Friday. It's a lot of lost sheep for 2 days because they don't know where they're going, and then the weekend happens, and it just starts all over on Monday. They will have forgotten everything they have learned for the first 2 days, and they'll be back on Monday, have no idea where their classes are. Now they've found out where all their friends go to lunch, like what lunch period they have. So now, because tomorrow officially starts schedule change, so if you have a change, you want to make your schedule, you can start it tomorrow. Now they all want to mysteriously change their fourth hour, because that's what determines lunch, and they've found out who and what friends are in each lunch. And so now they're like, yeah, man, I'm a fourth hour teacher. We're just not jiving. If I can have this teacher at this hour, I'll be good. I'll be like, no. So I think I've shared you guys, right now I carry a lot of bag full of no's to work every day. Unfortunately, they don't get to do that as much as they would like. If you have your Bibles open to Matthew chapter 7, the next couple times I'm here, we're going to be talking a little bit out of the Sermon on the Mount. I love the Sermon on the Mount, starting in Matthew chapter 5. Obviously, it begins with the Beatitudes, what many of you are familiar with. But we're going to get a little bit more deeper into it because it goes all the way through Matthew chapter 8, chapter 9, when Jesus spends all this time preaching about all these different things. He deals with so many just different aspects of life that so many times the struggle for modern day believers, at least the conversations I have, and even people who are not believers, they don't think that the Bible or what God teaches through the authors, and here's what's unique about why the Sermon on the Mount I think is so powerful, is because this is Jesus talking. This is a long oration by Jesus. This isn't an author. This isn't a retelling of a story. This isn't, I saw this, and they tell Paul, and then Paul writes it, right? This is Matthew setting, transcribing, word for word, dictating the mouth and words and talking of Jesus, okay? Big difference. If students and young people and adults alike, that's why the red letters are so important in a Bible. Because when you see red letters in a Bible, right, we know those are the direct quoted words of Jesus. And so you get into Matthew chapter 5, that's several chapters of Jesus talking nonstop. And so when Jesus talks, I urge you to listen. All right? Because people always ask me, well, what do you think about end times, or what do you think about the church, or what do you think about politics, or marriage, or friendships, or relationships, or anger, or all those things? I'm always like, well, what did Jesus say about it? Let's go there first, right? Because if we want to really find out what we think and why we think it, let's get to what Jesus said. I mean, that is the ultimate ace of spades. Right? That is the trump card always, right? So when we jump into this idea of how we ask and how we go about and who Jesus is as our Father, and so many times we are afraid as believers to ask for things. We think it is a selfish act as a believer sometimes to ask for something of God. And I think that is a tragedy that as fallen believers, that they think that we can't come to Him with whatever our need is. We almost feel like, man, there's so many people that need, and there are. I wake up, I'm blessed beyond belief. I wake up every day shocked at what I have and what I get to do and what I get to be a part of. It's unbelievable. That does not disqualify me for seeking Jesus when I have a concern or a need and I need to ask Him of something. Just because He has blessed me does not mean I don't need Him. Right? You know, and sometimes I have been taught this situation, I have been taught this truth in some very unique ways over the years. And I was thinking about how could I best describe Jesus saying, don't ever put yourself in a situation where you think I won't show up in a weird way. Just to remind you that I'm just always around. And sometimes you're going to need me even when you don't think you need me and you're afraid to ask for me. Right? So I thought about this, and I kind of wish that my friend Mike Stewart was here right now, because he was with me when he happened. You got some of you guys know who Mike is. Mike and Sabrina, they're dear friends of ours. They just live here in Cashin. And he was with me when this happened. And he loves this story more than life itself. Usually brings it up in really inopportune times to just let people know about one of the weirdest things I've ever been a part of, and maybe one of the sketchiest things I've ever done. But it was one of the greatest teaching moments that Jesus has ever taught me about. When you think you don't need something, you really do need it. And when you're afraid to ask, I'll provide it sometimes. I'll trump you in the situation. I used to do prison ministry for a really, really long time, for several years. Been in probably 20 penitentiaries across the central part of the United States. Met some very unique individuals over the years that have varying varieties of walks of life, as you could probably imagine. I was in Dallas, Texas, and it was one of the very first times I'd ever gone into a facility. Might have been my first one or my second one, actually. Scared to death. I mean, mortified. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing this. Like, they'd gone through the training. I'd done all this, we'd done the role playing. We talked about if you get into a conversation, how you're supposed to talk to an inmate, how you're supposed to have these types of conversations. And it's Dallas's version of it's Dallas County. It's an old parking garage that they had converted into a facility it's not far from downtown Dallas, that is kind of like our Oklahoma County jail. Very similar build, okay? They tell us they're going in, we're going to drop you guys in, you're going to go up to a floor, and basically they just put us in a pod full of inmates. And we're in there sharing the gospel. They knew we were coming, but you have to understand, in most incarcerated situations, their day of operation is very different than yours and I's. Their breakfast is usually about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Lunch happens about 9:30, sometimes 10. Have dinner about 2 or 3, and that's it. Okay? Very, very, very different, at least in that facility. And many are like that. So when we got in there, they told us we were having lunch. And they said it is very important that you eat with them. This is food is a thing there. And there's a lot of food in security. And I was like, okay. And, but as you can imagine, it is not, very appealing in any way, shape, or fashion. As they started bringing the food in on these trays, I saw it. I was like, those guys are eating it right up. They don't hesitate. And I noticed very quickly that I don't have any utensils. And I looked at it as, God, you are good. Because I'm not eating this with my hands. And I'll just give it away or something like that. And Mike is sitting there next to me, right? And he had utensils, but they didn't give me any. And they're eating so fast. And I was like, I'll just kind of just like bob and weave. I'll just get out of eating this food, and it won't matter. And the guy I'd been talking to all morning, up until that point, we'd gotten in there about 8 o'clock. It'd been about an hour and a half, and he was from the Dallas area. And he had made a profession of faith when he was a child, but wasn't really for sure if that was real. And here he is. He'd had these series of things that had happened in his life that led him where he's at. He was going to spend the next several years of his life incarcerated for the choices he had made. And him and I had kind of built this friendship and this relationship. And he's an African-American guy, great guy, nice guy. But his choices and my choices were different and had led us on two different paths. And he's finished up eating, and he looks over, I haven't touched my food. And I'm talking, and Mike's sitting there, and Mike's kind of nibbling at his, trying to get through it. And I'm thinking any minute they're going to grab my tray, and we'll just be done. And he gets done, my friend that I'm talking to. And they just wash their utensils off in the sink. They have their own personal set, kind of like a camping set you've ever seen, kind of like a hard plastic on a ring. Has like just has a kind of a spork on it and like a regular spoon, and that's it. And he wouldn't put it up. And I'm sitting there, we're visiting, and he notices, he's like, "You're not eating." I was like, "Oh, that's no big deal. Man, it's no big deal." I said, "Here's the deal." I was like, "I don't have any utensils, and it's fine." And the guys, and I were kind of talking, and before I even know it, my man gets up and goes and gets his personal utensils that he had just washed off in a jail sink, and comes and sits down and says, "Bro, you got to eat, man. Use mine." Now, you have a decision to make in that moment, ladies and gentlemen. Are you really there because you say you're there, because you say you're going to put yourself in a position, you're going to ask God to use, like, you want me here. I've engaged in this conversation. I say that I will go where you go. I will do what you do. I will surrender to wherever you place me. All right? Here I'm sitting there thinking, God, I'm here where I'm supposed to be, God, but I don't need to eat this. Like, I'm good. I'll eat later. Days later, I will eat. It's all good. I'll do a hunger strike if we need to. We'll do some fasting up in here. But I had remembered this deal where they had said how important it is if they ever show you humanity and life and care and normalcy. Because if I'd have been at his house or I'd been at your house and you got up and got a fork out, it's like, you didn't give me a spoon or a fork for a meal, and you realize that, you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let me go get you." You go pull one out of your drawer. I wouldn't think two thoughts about it. I'd eat right there on the spot. "Thank you very much." He was treating me no different as a guest in his home. And for him to get up and walk to his bunk and go pull that personal utensil out and bring it back to me, I had to make a decision. Do I think, God, is this really happening right now? I got to do this right now. And Mike's looking over at me like, "You going to eat that with that dude's fork?" I'm like, "Man, I think Jesus might strike me with a thunderbolt if I don't, man." Like, I feel like I'm in one of them moments right now where I got to put the rubber and the road is hitting each other at about 100 miles an hour. And I ate some of that food with that dude's fork, or spork, if you will. And let me tell you what, I had my head on a swivel there for a while, thinking I might get sick any second. I didn't know what was going to happen. I just prayed and asked, like, "God, here I am." All right, I just laid myself out here. I just ate with a prisoner's fork, prison food that he gave me. All right, it's about the most third world thing I've ever done in my whole life, right? And they came and got my food, and I went and washed the stuff off for him, gave it back to him, told him thank you. Now, here's the cool part. The cool part is we're there forever. We were in there from like 8 o'clock in the morning to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. We spent the whole day with them, just hanging out. And it was unique. It was wild. A lot of different stories. And they love it because it's just new people to talk to. And they don't hold anything back. And later on that afternoon, about 1:30 or 2 o'clock, the guy that I had eaten with circled back around, and we sat back down at the little table, and we talked. And the cool thing was, that afternoon, he gave his life to the Lord. He said, he's like, "I'm scared to death. I'm going to miss this opportunity." And he's like, "I don't know the next person who will come in here and be able to talk to me and have this kind of conversation or not." And so we did, and he had drug offenses. That was mostly his background. And he prayed and received the Lord right there. And I had nothing to do with that. But I often thought, God put me in a place to do something, and I asked something of him. I really wanted that cup to pass over, real bad. And he said, "No, I need you to sit here for a minute. I need you to sit in the uncomfortable, because that's where the stretch and the growth comes from, right? From the uncomfortable." And I don't know that if I don't eat with that fork, but I know that one of these days, probably, Lord willing, 50 years from now, when I draw my last breath, because he was at that time at least 10 or 15 years older than I was. I was in my late 20s, early 30s. He was already well into his 40s. And there is a peace, and I've never seen him, never heard from him again, never spoke to him again, never been back to that facility again. It was 2000, so that's 17, 18 years ago. I have no idea where he's at. I think his first name was Alan. That's about all I can remember. But I know one of these days, I will draw my last breath. And somewhere in eternity is Alan. And he's not using prison forks anymore. And I think that because sometimes we are afraid to ask God to put us in situations or ask things of him, sometimes we miss out on that. So let's look at what Jesus talks about asking. Ask and it will be given to you, good or bad. It'll be given to you. Sometimes it's a prison fork. But sometimes it's the blessings that you could ever imagine. Both are what God intended for you, no matter what. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be opened unto you. Jesus is not a mystery. He is not playing hide and seek with you about where you are or where you're going. If you will honestly, if you go back and look at a lot of the encounters of Jesus, there's a lot of unique encounters that Jesus has all throughout, whether it be the woman at the well, whether it be the woman who was bleeding, whether it be blind people. But one of my favorites is his interaction when the children come running to ask him questions. And the disciples were completely appalled by that. And he immediately tried to keep the children away. Because if there was one station in life that had less importance, unfortunately, than females in the ancient Near East, first Jerusalem, it was children. They had no station. They had no rights. They had no importance up until they reached 13-ish. That's when things started and it was really only males. And Jesus rebuked all of his disciples when they did that. He said, unless you can come and talk to me like they can and like they are, what? You can't talk to me at all. So when Jesus says, unless you're willing to humble yourself in the simplest and softest and sometimes almost the most purest of ways, because when a child asks you a question, something that comes from purity, from innocence, from not understanding and just needing more than anything help in that moment. No strings attached. No preconceived notion. No nothing. Just this is what I need. And Jesus said, unless you can do that, unless you can ask that way, I don't know if you can ask. So he's saying, when you come to me this way, you will find, you'll knock, it'll be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. The language here is not, it might be. It will be. Now, will it be instantly? Sometimes. Sometimes it'll be 6 months from now. Sometimes it'll be 5 minutes from now. Sometimes it'll be a year from now. Because remember, right? A day is like 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is like a day to him. And so we don't know what his timing is. We don't know how his plan is unfolding. We don't know how his work of the Lord is unfolding as we ask. He just says it will be opened and it will be unlocked. You stay the course. You stay the course. And sometimes, unfortunately, the answer is no, or not right now. Because I ask with all the earnesty in my heart, I do not want to eat this. I do not want to do anything to do with this. God, if there is any, and he said, no. I'm going to open a different door in this moment. I need you to walk through it. I don't need you to question it. I don't need you to balk at it. I don't need you to freak out about it. I need you to do it. Surrender to me. Follow me. Nothing more, nothing less. Right? He goes on to, he makes this, I think it's interesting how he goes on to talk about parents and children. This is the example he uses to describe him as the parent and us the child. He goes, for which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone? If my child comes and asks me, they're nearly 18 years old, nearly 16 years old, but if they come and ask me for something that they need, like food, drink, water, shelter, that I'm I'm going to give them something completely unreal. Here, Dad, I need something to eat. Okay, here's a pencil. Good luck with that. What kind of parent does that make me? Kind of makes me ridiculous. And that's the picture that it's like your Heavenly Father knows exactly what you need. And when you ask for what you need and He knows that you need it, He's not going to not give it to you. He's going to give it to you however it needs to come to you, in a way that you will understand it and receive it. It will match His kingdom. It will match His will for your life and the plan He set out before you. It'll be perfect what you need. It'll be exactly what you need in the portion in which you need it. No more, no less. It's just that. Now, we always want more. We're sinful in that way. God gives, we're like, a little more, a little more. And sometimes it's like, no, this is enough. This will be plenty for now. And we have to be okay with that. That's the hard part. The hard part is being okay when God gives and us saying, okay, okay, okay. And being content with what the Lord has done, especially when the Lord has done. And we have to be okay with that. We have to be settled with that. He goes on further, or if bread will give him a stone, or if he asks for fish, we'll give him a serpent. He just uses the same, he's just using multiple examples, multiple pictures of you ask for something good, He's going to give you something bad. That's not the way God is wired. That's not the way God sees us or wants to help us. I think a lot of the misconception about God and what He wants to do for us and through us is that He just goes around smacking the smite button on us all the time. We just feel like we just can't get up off the mat sometimes. And people have asked me that more times than I can count. Like, why does that stuff happen? I have no idea. We live in a fallen world. We talked about that paper with sin on it. It's for them children. That's a great example of brokenness crept into the world. And sin and darkness exists here now. And we've been left here to know Him and to make Him known and to have our sin washed away. Because that's why I tell people all the time, like, if it was just about your salvation, right? The second you were saved, you'd be sucked up like through a bank tube, gone, right? But we're left here for a reason, right? What's the reason? There's so many others that walk the planet that have never come to this place. Now, I will tell you, I'm seeing things that are unique in culture for believers. And it's funny how you see things happening. I don't know if I got to see him in concert last spring, and he has become kind of a unique lightning rod. He's become the most downloaded artist on Spotify. I mean, more than Beyonce, more than Taylor Swift. Anybody know who it is? It's Forrest Frank. Forrest Frank has succeeded the most popular artists on the planet. He had like 100 million downloads or something like that in the last couple of months. In fact, if you know his story a little bit, I went to his concert when it was in Tulsa back in April or May, and it was a great show. It's awesome. If you're not listening, his music is great music. And it's really cool. Has anybody been to his concert? Anybody been to a Forrest Frank concert? Anybody? No? Okay, cool. Right? This will, spoiler alert. And so, but the opening of his show is about a 50-year-old video of his grandfather sharing his testimony at a Billy Graham revival on stage in front of about 80,000 people at a stadium. It's his father, his grandfather. And he goes, and that's how the place goes dark in this huge screen in this old grainy video from the 70s in like Fulton County Stadium in Atlanta. There's this gentleman, Mr. Frank, standing up there sharing scripture and his story and his salvation experience that he had at a Billy Graham revival. And now he was on stage sharing his testimony about what God had done in his life at this very thing, and then boom, it goes right into and he talks about his spiritual legacy that he almost missed because he wanted to do secular music. You know, in fact, if you go back, if you follow him on any social media, he talks a little bit. He was offered several $1 million about 10 years ago to go on tour, to not do Christian music, because it became so popular through YouTube. He was making, you know, in a couple of years, he uploaded 80 songs onto YouTube that he created himself. And God just got a hold of his life. And he'd been a believer, but realized that God wanted him to make Christian music, and that's what he does now. In his current song, there's a dance on TikTok that's gone viral. It's spreading all over the world. And it's just kind of wild when God chooses these moments and these unique things that I'm seeing, that having these conversations about who God is becoming shockingly easier, believe it or not. People are listening to the conversations more. I know that sounds crazy because we can turn on the news and hear the opposite, but I'm telling you, it's happening out there. People say, God is good. And when we ask him to use us wherever we're at, he will. And he will give you the tools, and he's not going to give you a rock, and he's not going to give you a serpent. He's going to give you exactly what you need. Lastly, if you then who are evil know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things who ask him? You say, think about the evil person that exists there that knows how to take care of their children and give them something that they need. How much more God the Father will give you? When we ask with a clear mind and a pure heart, God gives. Whatever that looks like, I don't know for you. I don't know where you're at or what your station is, but I know this. I learned this a long time ago as a young believer, as a young youth pastor. Psalm 24 teaches us a very important truth about who God is and how we approach him when we do. When you're ready to ask, when you're ready to truly seek the kingdom of God and all of its righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, as the next chapter says in Matthew chapter 6, right? It should look a lot like this. The earth is the Lord and the fullness. This is Psalm 24, starting in verse 1, Psalm of David. It says, the earth is the Lord and the fullness thereof, and the world and those who dwell within it. First and foremost, when we ask for things, I saw Lou Giglio do this one time, founder of Passion, the Passion Movement, pastor in Atlanta. He was at a camp that I was at, and he asked, how many of you guys own a CD player? Of course, everybody, CD player. So let me date that for a second real quick. Bam! All right, CD player. All right? Of course, everybody stands up, right? I stood up. Like, I own a CD player. 6 disc, and so let's get real. Shuffle. And so let's get it. And so everybody stands up. And then we all stood there for a second. He goes, all right, everybody sit down. And then he goes and reads this verse again. He goes, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and the world and those who dwell within. And he talks about the earth is the Lord and everything that's in it. He says, how many of you guys own brand new pair of like tennis shoes? And most of us stand up again. Like, yeah, I got great new kicks on, man. Good looking kicks. And he sets everybody down again. He goes back and he goes, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and the world and everything that dwells within it is his. He says, how many of you guys own your own car or drive a car, have a car? I go to stand up and I was like, wait, hold on. I believe he's up to something here. And I did a quick evaluation. I was like, and he's also read that verse 3 times in a row. We've not moved on. And I was like, aha. The first thing we have to understand when we ask of God, it's all his anyway, right? Now, it takes 15-year-olds to get there way quicker than it does like a 24-year-old. Right? I mean, it took me a minute, but it took them because he did it 4 or 5 more times, and there was a handful of them Hanyaks that just kept standing up. I got that too, man. I got all this stuff. And finally, this is a leadership camp. This isn't like just some random camp. This is like the best of the best of the best that's supposed to be at this camp. And we found out that somebody slipped through the cracks. Somebody's registration process was a little easier than others. But we learned that, first of all, the earth is his. And everyone and everything that dwells in it is his. He has dominion over it all. Verse 2. We'll move on, but I'm going to keep reading verse 1 to you. He has founded it upon the seas. He has established it upon the rivers. Who shall ascend the hill of the Lord? Who shall stand in his holy place? You want to ask of him. You know it's all his. He has dominion over it all. You want to ascend that hill. You want to ask that question. You want to stand in that holy place. And you want to ask him of what is on your heart. I'm going to ask somebody who's right there, who's following along with me in Psalm 24. Read it out loud for me. Somebody read verse 4. Those who have clean hands and a pure heart. You want to ask of God, where does hand raising come from in worship? It comes from this idea. Holy worshipers in the ancient world, when they would approach the Holy of Holies, though they could not go in it, as close as they would get, they would show their hands. So that they would show that I have clean hands. I am undefiled. I'm undefiled. I am, with a pure heart, I ask these things. So when we want to go to that place, we want to ask God of these things. We want to say, I need this. I don't need a stone, I need the bread. I don't need a serpent, I need the fish. Who can do that? Who can ascend that hill and ask that question? Because the beautiful thing is, when David's writing this, the temple does exist. So there is no curtain anymore. You can walk right into the presence. You can walk right up that hill. Jesus did all that for you. He cut all the red tape, slashed all the bureaucracy, took all the things out of the way. All you got to do is, with a clean hand and pure heart, approach him like a child and ask, and it shall be given to you. Knock, and it shall be opened. If you're looking for it, you'll find it. Why? Because you have a clean hand and pure heart. That's how we ask things. When I asked to not eat that food, there was a motive in my heart to skip it, to not do it, to not be in the moment. God had placed me there for a reason. And I wanted to not do that. My motives were not pure. They were 100% selfish. Because it was something I didn't want to do. I thought it was gross. I was freaked out that I was in there. I was nervous about talking to those people. Their lives are completely different than mine. I don't know anything about prison life. I don't know any of that. So, God's like, yeah, I am going to answer your prayer. You are not going to like it, but here it comes. Prison for it. Get to eat. Because this is where I've planted you, and this is where you need to grow right now. And I was okay, and I had to get okay with that. Let me tell you what, you do something like that, I am not a germaphobe, I can promise you that much. What little bit I had, that moment snapped it right out of me in an instant. Who can ascend the holy hill of the Lord? Those with clean hands and a pure heart. So my prayer for you this week is that when you ask of the Lord anything, remember, he will give to you because he's a good God. As followers of him, as followers of Jesus, he will give you what you need when you need it. But I pray that you would ask so with a clean hands and pure heart. Not with selfish motives, not with a desire of, I hope it's this instead of that. It's with, God, I'm asking this, whatever that looks like, I'm okay with. Whatever that looks like, God, I'm okay with. Because sometimes it doesn't look exactly like you want it. We have these visions in our head. We're like, this is, we map it out in our mind, we visualize it, we're thinking about, okay, God, this is how I need all of this to play out. Just like this. And God's like, man, my ways are just not your ways, Mick. I'd love it, but here's the deal. I'm going to need you to do this thing over here, and it's going to impact all that. And it's going to be this really hard conversation. It's going to be in this really hard place. And doing these things, I'm going to get you there, but I need to use you along the way. And in doing so, we're going to detour a little bit, right? But it's okay. I'm going to close with this story. It kind of goes along with this whole thought process. I went to Utah several years ago on a mission trip. Very unique experience. Took several students and adults on the trip. And we went up to Park City. We had a day off where we kind of, beautiful city. It smells weird. I don't know if you guys have ever been to Utah, Salt Lake City, but when it rains, all the salt gets wet, and it kind of smells weird. But it's a beautiful city. And we went up to the Olympic Park, went up to Park City, did all that kind of fun stuff. We were luging and doing stuff and zip lining and all this good stuff. And I had a guy with me he's retired auditor for the IRS. You're talking about a guy, barrel of monkeys, right? A lot of fun. Was he in charge of finances for a church? Yes. Was he tighter than the bark on a tree? I mean to tell you. But he was fun. I loved him. The guy loved maps, and he loved to travel. And I had both of his sons in my youth ministry, and he always went on mission trips with us. And the cool thing was, he traveled all the time. He audited massive, massive corporations, like the big ones. Like he knocked on your door professionally, you better batten down the hatches, all right? And so, but because he traveled so much, the cool thing was he accrued so many like free nights at hotels, it was crazy. So he would always donate free nights for our mission trip or hotels, because he would have more nights. He'd have to sleep in a hotel for years on years on years to use up his free days. So he would take them and he would donate them for our trip. Now, sometimes we stayed in some weird spots, neither here nor there. We're on this trip, and he was like, Mick, we'd gone up the main way to the mountain, did the whole fun, we were exhausted, great day. He goes, hey, I found this back road back into Salt Lake City, because he's like a map nerd, like a real live maps, paper maps, not like GPS. He was all about paper maps. He studied them, marked them out. He did like the route, like did the scale, knew them. I mean, we're talking, whoa. Right? He's like, we're going to go this back road back. And I was like, Brian, I don't know, man. Like that stuff stresses me out. When you're a youth pastor, you got all these people on trip, you're like, bro, let's stick to the main road, man. I'm not from here. I've watched enough scary movies and weird stuff. You take the back road, that's when we go missing. All right? I'm telling you, this is the first 5 minutes of a movie where we're the first 5 minutes. All right? And I was like, I don't know, man. He's like, Mick, I'm telling you, we're going to take this detour. And I was like, my wife, Ashley was with me, and I was like, Brian wants a detour on the way back. And Ashley's like, oh, it'll be great. I'm like, will it? And I'm like looking at Don, his wife, Donna, was on the trip. True story. He is an auditor for the IRS. She is a chemical engineer. Can you imagine? My goodness. Their children are brilliant. And so I was just like, you guys are something else. And Don was like, oh, it'll be great, it'll be great. So I was like, all right, back road, here it is. I'm like, anybody got an air tag that we can put in our pockets so they find us later? You know, but you know what? True story. He had completely mapped it out. It was one of the most beautiful drives I've ever been on in my whole life. It was gorgeous. We went through the mountains, along these rivers. We saw mountain goats and sheep and elk and all kinds of stuff and mule deer. I mean, and I was like, are you from here? Bro, like, how did you even know? He's like, man, I just did some research, knew where I was. And I was like, holy cow. This was awesome. As an outdoors guy that loves to hunt and fish and do all those types of things, it was one of the prettiest car rides for an hour I've ever been on in my life. So when Jesus wants to take you on a detour, let's just trust he knows the route, right? Because I bet you it's going to be pretty awesome along the way. All right? All right, let's pray.